Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2.
It is now fall, and we're concerned about your safety as we get into fires in our homes. So, I'm talking today with John Boose. He is a fire marshal in College Place, Washington. Welcome to the program, John.
Thank you, Dan. Glad to be here.
Now, tell us just a little bit about your work and how you became involved with fire safety.
Well, my current assignment is as the fire marshal for the city of College Place. I started out as a volunteer firefighter and had another career I was involved in. And then when the opportunity came, I tested for a career position, and I'm still here 22 years later on the career end.
So you have experience in both house fires, city fires, let's call them, and wildfires as well, correct?
Sure, you bet. And we call those city fires that involve buildings a structure fire, and the ones that are in the wildlands a wildland fire.
Okay, so I want to say just a few words, find out a few things about the wildland fires because they're still burning around here.
Yes, it's been quite an active season.
It's been a very active season, and a lot of people have lost their homes, had to evacuate. It's just been a mess.
Yeah.
So are there things that people should be doing to prevent those kinds of things? I guess you can't prevent the fire, but how can you protect your home and make it less likely to burn? How can you protect yourself from becoming another victim?
Sure. There's some common sense things. Make sure there's a defensible space around your house.
What's that? What's a defensible space?
Well, they like to put it down in numbers and that fit all, but it doesn't quite work that way. They say at least 35 feet from your house. You want to keep all of the trees and bushes and so forth back. If you're on a hillside, then you have to increase that. But give the firefighters some space to work. Be a good start.
Why is a hillside different?
Because of the convective heat that moves up the hillside.
Oh.
As heat rises, so creates more of a problem. Roofs, you probably want to avoid wood shingles. Come up with something that's either non-combustible or limited combustibility, such as the composite shingles we use now, or a metal roof. Siding, openings underneath decks. Don't pile a bunch of firewood directly against your house because it takes time to move and it's very receptive to fire.
Okay. So the wildfires are still burning, but it gets cooler and people start to heat their homes. You know, a lot of people use wood or other combustible materials inside the home. How can we protect ourselves? Let's talk about smoke detectors, for example.
Okay.
Tell us how to pick out a good smoke detector, where we're supposed to put it, how we're supposed to use it.
Okay. A smoke detector, you want to look for something that is UL listed. That's going to give you a bare minimum for protection. And rule of thumb for placement, there should be one in each sleeping area, such as a bedroom. There should be one in the hallway out in front of the sleeping areas. And there should be at least one on each level of your home.
How about the kitchen area? Are there any things that you should do there?
We try to avoid the kitchen because you'll have a lot of false alarms. Every time you burn the toast or even running water in the sink, the steam can set them off. So.
Really? Okay. But make sure your sleeping areas are covered. You're going to be asleep when the fire hits your house and you need something to wake you up.
Most of the fatalities that we find in structure fires or residential fires happen during the night when people are sleeping.
Oh, wow. Okay. How about kids? Are there any special precautions that families should take about their children's sleeping areas?
Yeah, children are really hard to wake up. So it's notorious. They've tried some things using a voice recording to get out instead of just a sound and so forth.
You're saying there are devices, there are detectors that actually will talk to you? Oh.
I'll tell you, there's a fire, get up. There's some that the parents can actually record their voice onto. Might help. I have one son who is up and evacuating the house before I can even do it, and another one who would sleep right on through. So, need to be aware of your children's sleeping habits and practice those fire drills. Make sure that they know how to get out. Should know two ways out. Bedroom's got a main door usually and probably a window to the outside. Make sure you come up with a good, safe meeting place for your family so that everyone knows to go there, and it makes it really quick to find out if everyone's out.
Now, a lot of these are battery operated. So batteries, don't last forever. How often should you change the batteries or check the batteries on these things? Or do these have indicators that tell you when it's time?
Sure, and it does somewhat depend on the brand as to how often the manufacturer recommends. There are detectors that have a battery that are supposed to last 10 years. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. A good rule of thumb, when you set your clock forward or back, replace your batteries. That helps you remember a time of year and so forth to do that. Your detector will probably let you know when the battery's life is coming to an end, because it's going to chirp, or it may even activate, make you think there's a fire in the house. That'll let you, but typically that seems to happen in the middle of the night. So I don't think that's the time you want that to happen.
Now, I know some detectors are actually hardwired. Are those better than the battery ones, or what should we do there?
Most detectors now in homes that are installed with construction have both hardwire power and they have battery backup, which is kind of the best of both worlds, because if you think about a hardwired detector with no battery backup, what do we do when the power goes out? Well, we pull the candles out, or a lamp.
Right.
We might want to do our cooking on a camp stove in the kitchen. All things that can contribute to a fire. So having the battery backup is really important as well.
Now, are there places in the house that it's good to have like a fire extinguisher?
Fire extinguisher should be somewhere that's readily accessible. A lot of people will put their fire extinguisher under the kitchen sink or something like that, but that may be the last place that you look when it's time. So having it accessible and visible so that you know where it's at. So if a friend comes over and is cooking breakfast before you get up in the morning in your kitchen for you and has a fire, they know where that extinguisher's at.
Now, I know my wife is going to say, I don't want that red thing hanging out there in the middle of my kitchen. It doesn't match my decorations. So
red goes with any color. Make sure you tell her, and I'll be glad to talk to her myself if that's a problem. No, it's your home. You can choose where you place it, but realize that in a hurry, in a rush, you may not remember it's there.
Okay. Well, there are some other kinds of detectors that we have in our house. Tell us about those.
Carbon monoxide detectors become a requirement now in homes. New homes are required. If you're going to sell a home or rent a home, a carbon monoxide detector. Carbon monoxide detectors are especially important in homes that have gas heat or wood heat or even gas-powered water heaters. Anything with a flame.
How do these work?
They're going to detect the carbon monoxide before it becomes a health risk to you. Sometimes smoke detectors are dual function. They'll be both carbon monoxide and smoke. Sometimes you can get a carbon monoxide detector that plugs into the wall. You need to have one probably accessible in the sleeping area is a great place to have that, because again, carbon monoxide, if you're already asleep, you just aren't going to wake up.
Now, what do you do if you have a detector that's chirping all the time? There's no fire, there's no smoke, there's none of the things that you think should be triggering this. I mean, can you get these things serviced or just replace them, or what do you do? Typically,
you're going to replace them, but some things to check first before you replace them. Obviously, there's a life expectancy. The average one has about a 10-year life expectancy. Make sure you've changed the batteries if there's battery backup, because that'll cause them to chirp or even to sound. Cleaning them. Take your vacuum cleaner out once a month and suck them out with the vacuum. You really don't want to blow them, because that'll push the dirt or dust on in. And the final thing, a lot of times insects love to crawl up inside of those because the little light that's inside warms them. So in the times of the year where it's cold, you'll see those more often.
So my wife and I built our house about 17 years ago. Should we be replacing those smoke detectors?
Well, you can take a look at the manufacturer's intent, but a lot of times what they're using to create the the ionization, if it's an ionization detector or whatnot, there may actually be some radioactive tritium inside. And
what was that?
Radioactive tritium, you know, the things that you put on your watch dial to light up.
You mean I've got a potential atomic bomb in my house?
Oh, I don't think so. Probably wouldn't be an issue. But that being said, tritium has a half-life, I think, of 6 years. And so after 6 years, they're half as effective as they were. It may be 12 years. But they start losing their effectiveness. And any electronic device wears out over time.
Okay. So maybe I should have them checked out just to make sure that the tritium half-life isn't expired or whatever.
They may not have that in them, but they do generally have some sort of a recommendation for replacement, and we use a rule of thumb of every 10 years.
Okay. Let's talk about recreational fires.
Okay. I get calls for recreational fires all the time. While we're not allowed to burn debris and so forth in College Place to get rid of it, can't burn your leaves, your garbage, etc., recreational fires are still permitted. We don't issue a formal permit for those, but the rules go as such. The average little recreational, religious, warming, or cooking fire, as long as you can keep it 25 feet from a combustible structure like a fence or a house or a garage, and you keep the size down to no more than 2.5 feet in diameter and no more than 2.5 feet tall, then you're in pretty good shape.
Now, these are a lot of figures for me to remember. Is there like a website or something where people can get this information?
Yeah, I think you'll find a lot of helpful hints at the Washington State Fire Marshal's Office website.
Okay.
Might be an option. NFPA is another site that has a lot of good information available for us.
Okay, don't go away. We will be right back, but get your pencil out because we're going to put that information, those websites, on the screen during our break so that you can write that down and go to those sites and get the information that you need to stay safe. Hello and welcome back to Valley Viewpoint. I'm Dan Solis, your host. My guest today is John Boose. He is the fire marshal for College Place, Washington. We've been talking about fires and fire safety. So John, we talked a little bit about the recreational fires and the regulations that govern those. A lot of people heat their homes with various appliances, especially in rooms that they might be a little bit colder than other parts of the house. So you stick in a little heater to supplement the temperature in there and so forth.
Yeah.
People have fireplaces, wood heaters, a lot of different devices that are used this time of year. So what are some things that we should be mindful of when we're heating our homes with some of these devices?
Well, this is a good time of year to think about that because people are probably starting to turn them on with these cool mornings and so forth. If you have a furnace, it's good to make sure that it has been serviced for best efficiency and so forth. But
so
also,
call your service provider,
yeah,
the people that installed it, or
absolutely.
Okay.
Unless you're comfortable doing that yourself, I would still have a professional take a look at it because there's things that they clean that you might not think about.
Yeah, I don't want to blow myself up. So
you're probably perfectly capable of changing the filters, but changing the filters this time of year is probably good because I would guess that there's plenty of dirt from all of the...
How important is that? I mean, changing the filters on a regular basis.
Well, it's not only an efficiency issue, but if you start getting combustible materials that are starting to gather on that filter, and maybe you're having a challenge with your furnace already, that could lead to a fire.
So the filter itself can be a fire hazard.
It can. Yep.
And what do these usually cost?
It really depends on the level of filter you're getting. There's an efficiency number for how well they do. Some of them are 4 or 5 inches thick. Some of them are half of an inch thick. It really depends on how much you want to invest to get as many of the dust particles and allergens out of the air.
Now I know that there are some people in the area that are still using heating oil furnaces, and there are other furnaces that run on natural gas, and then you have your all-electric homes. Are there any special things that we should be aware of when we think about the particular furnace that we have in our home, oil or gas or electric?
Well, I think each one of them probably has their own cleaning procedures. So that's why it's kind of important to choose a professional to come in and do your cleaning.
Okay, get a professional in.
Yeah.
It's not that costly, and it can save your life.
It can save your life, great peace of mind as well. You really don't want your furnace going down in the middle of the cold weather anyway, if there's another problem with it.
Now, a lot of people like to split their wood. You know, it's just kind of a yearly ritual, split the wood, and they've got either a wood-burning furnace or a fireplace. How do we keep safe when we're burning actual materials inside of our homes?
Sure, whether it's a wood stove or a fireplace or a pellet stove, cleaning the chimney is probably a great place to start. Whether you do that yourself or, again, have a professional do it, cleaning the chimney is important because that creosote buildup can cause a chimney fire, which can then cause a structure fire.
Okay.
They can also inspect that chimney and make sure that it's in good shape and that you don't have any void spaces that might lead to your attic or start a fire there as well.
So Santa coming down once a year is not going to clean it out.
Probably not going to do the job. Depending, if you're burning very dry wood and the right types of wood, you're going to have less creosote buildup. But I think even the best firewood probably does have some buildup.
Now, speaking of holidays, so Halloween, a lot of times people are, putting up candles and, making it spooky. Get to Christmas time or any time between, Thanksgiving and Christmas, people are decorating, and a popular decoration is the candle. In fact, true confession, and I hope my wife isn't watching, but we had some friends over several years ago, and we were all in the living room, and she had a candle burning on the dining room table, and the glass that the candle was in heated up, and it cracked, and then the liquid wax caught on fire, and it caught the table on fire. So we've been there. Tell us about candles and candle safety.
Good rule of thumb on candles: never leave a candle burning in a room when you leave.
Like we did.
That's a place to start. Then think about how close it is to combustibles like drapery or other paper
Not the dining room table.
There's the dining room table, you bet.
Okay, so just make sure that these things are not close with anything that can catch on fire.
Yep, that and leaving them unattended is probably the number one.
We've learned from this experience, and so our candles now are these electric fake flames that still flicker. They look nice, so there are ways to get around some of those issues. The Christmas tree. Wow, how many fires do you have to put out that start with Christmas trees?
Actually, in my career, I don't think I've ever fought a fire started by a Christmas tree.
Oh,
but
that's great.
I have investigated a couple of fires that involved a Christmas tree.
They get dry, they get brittle, they're close to the candles in the window.
They say, maximum life expectancy of a live tree, and a lot of people still like to have a live tree, but the maximum expected life of that would be maybe 2 weeks inside. One way you can tell when it's getting dried out is if you bend the needle. If it'll bend before it breaks, it's probably still okay. But if you can't bend it before it breaks, it's probably time to take the tree out. Keeping that tree well watered will extend its life expectancy.
Now, God forbid that this should ever happen to any of our viewers, but I've had friends that have gone through the loss of a loved one caused by a fire. And I don't want that to ever happen to anyone again. If a fire breaks out in our house, we've taken all the precautions, we've done everything right, but something went wrong and there's a fire in the house. What do we do? let's say we smell some smoke. What's the next thing we should do?
Well, get out and stay out. That's what we tell the kids. Get out, go to your family safe meeting place, take that cell phone you've got and call 911 or go over to the neighbors. Don't spend any time inside the house. Now, if there's a good possibility that it's a false alarm, you might investigate that first. But if you start seeing smoke or smelling smoke, just get out.
Or the detectors are beep, 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 beeping.
Yeah, if they're telling you to get out. If you do have smoke, staying low. If there's any breathable air inside that room, it's going to be closer to the ground than it is the ceiling.
Oh, so this goes back to the old saying, stop, drop, and roll?
Well, stop, drop, and roll is for when your clothing catches fire.
Oh, okay.
But stay low and crawl would probably be a good one to remember for a smoky room.
Okay, so if your clothing catches fire, then you stop, drop, and roll.
Yep.
If there's smoke coming in, stay low to the floor and get out. Home safety, as building codes change and so forth, are our codes keeping our people safe? I mean, I know that when we built a house, we had to have, because we have a basement, we had to have some large windows and wells outside of it so that if there's a fire, you know, people can get out. If people are building a home, are there things that they should be concerned with as far as fire safety is concerned?
If you're building a home in an area that has adopted building codes and it's enforced, the building codes have really made a big difference in life safety, both for being able to get out and also for the resiliency of that structure when it does face fire. Things as simple as sheetrock on the walls, really limiting the spread of fire. But as you mentioned, having the window wells, if it's a basement bedroom, being able to get out, or actually the real reason for that is so that firefighters can get down in there and rescue you without having to go through all of the heat that's going to be close to the ceiling. Because while we wear special clothing, you're probably not wearing the same, so it makes it very difficult for us to rescue.
So if I wanted to buy my own fire suit, where would I go? No, I'm just kidding, just kidding. Okay, so be safe, make your home safe, you know, keep your kids safe. So any final words about fire safety? Anything that I didn't ask that you would like to cover and make sure that we know?
Well, you did touch on heating appliances. One, you mentioned a little space heater or auxiliary heater.
Yes.
Make sure you have an up-to-date version, maybe not the one that was from 1950.
That still has the cloth cord on it.
Yeah. Those are some big issues. The newer versions, if they tip over, they're going to shut themselves off. If they overheat, they're going to shut themselves off. But even all that being said, try to keep them at least 3 feet away from a combustible surface. You know, your blankets, your couch, your drapery, that sort of thing.
Is it safe to leave the room if you have one of those on?
The newer style, yes. They
Okay.
still recommend, if you're not going to be in that room, you know, turning it off.
So just put on more blankets, right?
Well, that might be helpful as well.
Well, John, I want to thank you for coming and joining us and helping us to be safer, not only inside our homes, but also to protect our homes from those wildfires that are still blazing around here.
They are.
And we wish you the best through this fire season and hope that you just get to sit in your office and do very little of nothing.
Well, thank you for having me here, and thank you for the well wishes. I hope everyone has a very safe and enjoyable holiday season as well, with no challenges due to fire.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for joining us on Valley Viewpoint today. If you have an idea or a concept for a future viewpoint, why not contact the station? Our number is 509-529-9149. Once more, that's 509-529-9149. For Valley Viewpoint, I'm Dan Solis.